So Julian, welcome back. It's been nearly a decade since you were last in Hong Kong U, and of course Hong Kong U's changed a hell of a lot since then. Just want to ask you about your current life. You're an actor, you're a producer, you're an entrepreneur. So how do you fit all this together in one single life?
I remember actually at HKU, I don't know which professor it was, but he said something very impactful. You know, you can have a jar and you can put one ball in there and the jar is full. But if you maybe put a couple of balls and you mix it together, then suddenly there's much more space. You can put much more things inside one jar. And I think that's really what it is. It comes down to how you manage your day in terms of self-discipline, in terms of how do you keep productive, because every day can be very different. I personally am right now working with Shaw Brothers. Everybody's knows Hong Kong TVB, these kind of roles. Now I'm waiting for a couple of cool dramas to come out where it's not only action but also some romance and also some interesting scripts. So I'm quite fortunate about being involved in some of the productions in that area. Right. I'm also very keen on producing my own films, because I think still there's something a bit missing in terms of the perspective that I can see, which is, I think, always a special perspective. Once you come from a foreign land to a new place and you need to get home, you need to facilitate your own views, and suddenly you see something that maybe people normally walk over and don't look for, and then suddenly I see things. So over the last few years, I started to write a couple of scripts and first short films, but now I'm actually producing 3 movies, and I'm very excited to have them come out soon. And we also want to have a little initiative where we invite Hong Kong filmmakers to participate in setting up and working together with Salon Films. We set up a little prize so people can participate in this. We call it cross-cultural content. So people who are interested in this kind of theme. And for me, it is very much about the cross-cultural things and how we feel all belong to the same, belong to being one thing, having same human emotions, being very vulnerable in these moments. And I think that actually makes the best show for entertainment and valuable entertainment, meaningful things. So that's crossing on to the entrepreneur part, where we're setting up this movie fund so people can participate in these kind of processes. And we're working together with European film producers where we're doing the same. So it will be a bit of a cross-cultural event and participation. And so there we're giving some grants, so that's going to start off soon. I'm also running a little social app where people can learn languages. So this is another entrepreneurial thing.
So you graduated in 2012. What made you decide to stick around in Hong Kong? Many students who come from overseas, they'll go back to where they came from.
I could sense that there is something for me to do. I hope I bring a unique perspective or an additional perspective to the table, and that makes me feel like, oh, I belong here, or I have a purpose, and that makes me stay. Yeah. And HKU did an amazing job of allowing me to kind of spread my roots here, because throughout the social programs, throughout the sports programs, I was actually, I had a bit of ground where I could spread my wings or roots, and then actually be like feeling like home. And ultimately you feel like where you feel home. And now I go to Asia, I go to different places, I go back to Germany, but at some point you think, oh, this is my current home. And once you have that feeling, you don't go anymore.
Yeah. You graduated in 2012, so what do you remember of all of this before you left?
To be honest, before I left, I came back a couple of times, but I remember like this mountain full of bush on the one side of HKU. It was really not yet constructed. Yeah. It was an unimpassable terrain, you couldn't come up here. It was quite some magnificent thing that suddenly it was there, and you're like suddenly, whoa, this was the mountain.
So one day you came back, and this whole construction is here. Yeah.
There was this mountain that has this road. When you walk downstairs to the bus station, you look up and you see all the green.
Yeah.
Before there.
Yeah. So quite different from the Hong Kong U that you knew.
Yeah.
Which was, a series of older buildings all based around the lily pond.
Yes.
Now we've got this.
Yes.
Of course, we're picking up on some of it here because we have the water feature going through. Yeah. And then a lot more student study space. So 2 floors of the Chi Wah Learning Commons, one and then the one above it, before you move up into the faculty towers.
No, yeah, I think it was much more like a main building. Everything was kind of in this old style thing, which had a very good feeling, because you were
the heritage feel.
Yeah.
Does it still feel like Hong Kong you?
It's a level up, I think. It's a level up, definitely, where there's more space. You know, it's kind of
More
like
green, I guess, as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So take you all the way back. You're 17 or 18 years old, German high school. You're coming towards the end of the line, and it's time to think about university.
Yeah.
Why Hong Kong? I mean, not many German students would look at Hong Kong, even consider it. They'd either consider a German university or maybe another continental European or maybe the UK, but not Asia, not Hong Kong. So why Hong Kong for you?
I think Hong Kong has a very strong perception in the world which I think Hong Kong needs to continue to build on. And whether, you know, we don't need to go political. Maybe it's just say this is a very creative city. It's a place between China and the West. It's just this one window. That's what it used to be called, or the window between China and the West. Why nobody's emphasizing on this anymore so much? I think that's a big, strong point.
And you could see that at the age of 17?
I could see that, and I felt like the first time I see a real vulnerable person there. Who is that? I cannot understand them. I want to understand if I would potentially be able to speak the same language. And that made me to go on that trip. And then actually, you know, of course, I signed up with the cultural department for Germany to help me to do something there. But eventually, it drew me into Hong Kong, because here I thought there must be a language where both of this could be translated, where both of this could be seen. And actually, it was true for me, because here I found a lot of my answers to those questions, and I found we are all the same. We fundamentally are the same, and it was through that experience that I said, okay, I need to figure that out. And of course, I could choose the UK or could choose Germany as such a thing, but it wouldn't be the same in answering that question that I had.
Any challenges when you first arrived? Any issues or problems? You know, if you can remember what it was like to integrate into Hong Kong for the first time.
We should be thinking about Hong people as being somebody who's very creative, fundamentally, as being somebody who has English and Chinese in their mind. More divergent thinking, I don't think is even possible in the mind. And of course, if creative people, maybe, you know, are put into a certain way, they become very smart about finding the right answer in the easiest way. I had to find out what's my strengths and what's not my strengths, and I think then once you have like an essay question where you can come up with a creative idea of making an argument, then suddenly people are like, oh wow, okay, this makes sense. And then sports was a big entrance for me to bring me in, because suddenly you are in the team. It doesn't matter.
And this was through the hall?
Through the hall. Yeah. I played lacrosse, I played soccer, you know, different kind of hall activities actually allowed me to suddenly be the same in a context, because it was about winning the other team and passing the ball over, and maybe, you know, somebody would scream at you because you did something wrong, or you scream at somebody because he did something wrong, but not because it was him and his name, but it was just his action in that moment. And that formed so much good friendship, and suddenly I started to use the same language, the same gestures, and so on, and it was very easy for me to dive in and adapt.
Okay, so this is social sciences now. When you were here, it would have been...
It was a 𝗬🗂𝗰𝗲𝗀 complex. It's really the first time that I'm coming back here to the Faculty of Social Science.
So all of the offices down there are looking right down in towards Central.
That's an upgrade for sure.
That is, yeah, compared with the social sciences I knew. And this is some of the work that we've been doing. I mean, you did social innovation and global citizenship.
Yes, I did.
So this is still here in the logo, and this is some of the internships that students have been doing.
Very good.
Yeah.
No, I remember such a impactful trip for me was actually to go to the Dunhuang and to the desert. One of those trips to China, where you see like a very different face of China, with a lot of cool people that make it work there. And you have the little schools there, where it's really like in these old films. These small schools, really.
Dirt schools.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they still have them there. People with a lot of things carrying around, like the whole bag of hay on the bag, walking around, all these things. It was an impactful trip. The Faculty of Social Science. Nice. Yes, it's good to meet you. It's good to be back here.
And in some ways, I think a place like Hong Kong U, you know, a lot of our students come in they've been highly regulated in high school, right?
Yeah.
They've just studied,
Yeah.
to get the grades to get into a place like this. And so a lot of that structure has been dictated by other people.
Yeah.
And the challenge of university study is kind of taking ownership for that themselves, so that by the time they finish, they are able to be more self-directed.
And I think social science has the ability. I hope there's actually more free thinkers, more creative people coming out of social science afterwards and building up their own ideas and say, okay, this is what we need, and then I think that gives the grassroots, because I believe Hong Kong has a bit an issue with helping the grassroots to grow up and to become something. It's nice to hire a very expensive artist or architect to come over here and do a talk, but how about the grassroots?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the ways we try and do that in this faculty is by social innovation and global citizenship, by getting students out off campus, into some kind of organization, getting them overseas, showing them different sort of experiences and making sure they do that as part of their studies, right? So not just as some extracurricular thing, but actually part of their studies, helping to guide them. But that gives them a lot of confidence and a lot of interest, and then they begin to see, oh yeah, maybe I should focus on this problem, or I'm really passionate about this thing.
When they asked me in my school to actually work in a forest for 2 weeks, and that was a very impactful 2 or 3 weeks, because it made me so connected to nature. And then afterwards, I always have how can I make a project, or how can I participate in let's say, protecting biodiversity? And I think if people be able to see different things, whether it's social work or how to protect the environment, these kind of projects, if they can dive in and see things.
So you already had a startup even before you graduated. And I don't even know if we were using that language of startup there, but you had a business anyway. Tell us something about that.
I think it starts with the question of what do I want to do in life, and that is a very important question for university students when they start picking their courses, when they're struggling maybe between what their parents say and what their heart says, and trying to find a balance. Because sometimes I think it's the same language but saying different things, but in fact meaning the same things, and a lot of people have conflicts by actually wanting to do the same thing or meaning the same thing, and then they actually don't communicate in a level where they actually realize, oh, what you want is the same what I want, Therefore, for me, my startup journey started during university, when I was looking a bit around. What is it that I want? I do like culture, I do like languages. So my first business was more in regard to schools, and we did a website where we allowed people to choose different schools and universities and tutors and language exchange partners. So it was in the language space. And then we got a major investment, which was very good, and we sold the company, so it was actually really exited and so on. But it was a long struggle that I used the university platform to kind of start that off, and we actually only sold it, I think, 3 years after I graduated. I'm starting again. I'm doing a little app as well for language learning. It's a free app, so I'm happy to announce it again in I guess 1 more month. We're ready to relaunch it. I was not supposed to do something after I sold the company for 3 years in that area, but
so that time has elapsed now, and you can come back in.
I can come back in, and I treat it as a side project. I used to, before, it's always like, oh, I need partners, I need a lot of people. But now I have 2 engineers who work with me. I have a consultant here who's a good friend who's on the data AI side, and it's just, whenever I have time, I'm doing this, and it's like almost like a WhatsApp conversation between the different parties. Very, very unique way of actually very, very lean, very, very agile way of doing this, and I think it's cool. It's a fun thing. It's more fun than actually like the money side in it nowadays, because before it was, once you have 20 people working with you and you want to do something in entertainment and you have investors involved, it gets kind of tricky. So I'm actually quite glad that this turned out to be that way,